The question that is asked, Dear Anonymous, how can I still have relationships in the world with unconscious people and still remain conscious? That is a good question. It's easy to say that I'm not going to bother having relationships with unconscious humans and isolate myself from them. No. They are you in what we consider the unilluminated state. We all exist as mirrors for each other, reflecting back to us certain parts of ourselves, our likes and dislikes, our fears and desires. It's important to understand with compassion all the reflections appearing in front of us without the need of adding any bias or judgment onto them. Just remain in a state of neutrality. All relationships are mere reflections of our inner state of being. You have to understand that what's being reflected back to you gives you, as its focal point of awareness, the opportunity to be more present, to be more silent, to be more still, and not to allow yourself to fall back into that unconscious state. The beings that are in our lives that represent the conditioned mind are those that are trapped in the ego state, are there to show us where we are. In other words, if they are angry in a reactive state, or they are presenting a certain challenge for you, they are there to test you, to see whether you are going to drop down to that level of awareness that represents the unconscious within you. Then you're in an even playing field. Knowing and fully embracing who you are as awareness, you will not allow those things to touch you. That's why all spiritual wisdom traditions speak about non-identification or spiritual detachment. You remain in a state of neutrality, where you can witness all that's happening and all that's going on. And instead of reacting, you have the opportunity to respond with presence within you. This exposes their unconsciousness, and it reflects back where your state of consciousness is, whether you're focused or unfocused, disciplined or undisciplined, whether you transcend the old unconscious patterns. You have to understand that unconscious people do not know what they do. They're in a state of unawareness. The same way as if you witness someone in a nightmare while they are dreaming. They may be talking in their sleep, tossing and turning, in a state of anguish or great fear may come upon them. And upon trying to wake them up, they may retaliate in reaction or attacking you, because the external stimuli of your presence somehow became incorporated, affecting their own unconscious dream state. And they can no longer tell the difference between reality and illusion. Unconscious humans suffer from the illusion of delusion. Realize that if you do not live out of awareness, then your life, your way of being, is molded and shaped by the societal influence. Unconscious beings live predominantly in that state, and their lives become largely predetermined, thinking themselves to be an isolated, alienated, separate being, disconnected from the whole universe, limited, powerless, not in control. This creates a lot of neuroses, anger, frustration, confusion. So it's important to understand that these are unconscious aspects of you. They're your lessons to make you stronger, to help you to expand in consciousness. If we wanted to become stronger, more healthy, we would have to put ourselves through challenging circumstances and situations outside of our comfort zone. We may have to eat certain foods that we're normally not used to eating. It may not be palatable. We may have to eat less than what we're accustomed to. This is all done to create new healthy habits. To take care of your body, you may have to go to the gym often. Lift weights that are much more challenging than what you're used to lifting. Running further than what you're normally used to doing. Constantly pushing yourself against adversities. This will help you develop strength. This will keep you in shape. You have to consciously do the same thing with unconscious beings. They're your adversities. They're your challenges. They help you to grow and expand and develop higher states of consciousness. So you can still, dealing with people, participate in the social formalities if you wish, but not necessarily having to engage in everything that they say or do. There has to be space there. Space for you to be, and to allow them to be in the state that they're in. If they decide that they want to remain unconscious and resists, not interested in positive changes within their life, to wanting an out of the nightmare of their own authored creation, then that's the choice that they make, and you have to respect that and allow them to do what they so choose. You cannot teach unconscious people mindful presence unless they have a desire to learn. And the best way to really teach is by way of example. People most of the time would rather watch what you do as opposed to hear what you have to say. So it's important when those do have an openness is to help them to create aware space in order to watch their thoughts so that these thought-created stories in their mind don't take over them and hijack their awareness, pulling them into a deeper state of unconsciousness. Thoughts in and of themselves are not the problem. Our identification and attachment to thoughts is what creates the problem. It's believing in these mind-made stories that we conjure up. And most of the time they clash with reality. It's something that we've added to reality based on our mental interpretations, definitions, labels, judgments, and conditionings. The mantra that unconscious people carry with themselves is that their beliefs, which are just stories, which are just thoughts, support them. If you truly want to help others, help them to observe the mind instead of complying with it, so that they can use the mind instead of being used by the mind. The whole point is to allow yourself the space to get out of the unconscious reactionary mode of the mind, which ultimately leads to some form of fear that pulls us into a deeper state of unconsciousness. So it is essential to bring more awareness into your life, in ordinary situations even. This way things become much more flowing and smooth. You will grow in presence power, and this generates a higher spiritual energy field of vibrational frequency where no negativity or stress or disharmony or fear can touch you, just as darkness cannot survive in the presence of light. Negative thoughts or fear-based thoughts cannot function in the presence of awareness. Those that refuse to awaken to the truth of their being, out of their own free will, that's what they have opened their doors to in this experience of life. And when they're ready to awaken, they will. A common question asked is, well, how can you love somebody who refuses to awaken? Who refuses to let go of the past? You love them with detachment. It is an impersonal love that you choose to express from. And what I mean by that is, you love them from a distance. It doesn't take anything away from who they are, knowing that they're a representation of you. You just are no longer entangled or attached or trying to change them. You accept them for what they are, and you allow them to be able to move within the space of your awareness through the process of non-interference. If somebody, for example, is supposed to be at an appointment in the morning, and you tell them to wake up, you turn on their lights, they become irritated and insist that they want to sleep longer. They tell you to shut the lights off and leave them alone. They've made their choice. It does not exclude your intentions of trying to help them wake up for their appointment and to get on with things for the day. If they willfully choose to go back asleep and to be left alone, it doesn't take your love away from them. It doesn't take your concern away from them. But you have to give them the space to make their own choices. It doesn't mean that you have to react back in a negative way. I liken unconditional love and conditional love like a bottle. The heart represents the bottle, the conditional mind represents the cork. And when love is unconditional, it's flowing. There are no hindrances. There are no blockages. But when conditional love comes into place, the mind, which represents the cork, for whatever reason, stops the flow. And our job is to allow the opening of our heart to flow, free from blockages, with no conditions. If you put the cork of the mind on the bottle of your heart, you not only give conditional love to others, but you also create conditional love within yourself. You can't feel your own love that comes from within. You contain it. You hold it back. And that love is a potential, a force. And when love is infinitely open and spacious like the sky, there are no limits. But there are ways of expressing that love, and that love can be expressed impersonally, which is universally to all. You don't have to personally love everybody that you meet. Love can also be expressed impersonally, which means universally in an altruistic sense, to all situations, to all people, to all experiences, without conditions. And love can be expressed personally, experientially. If they're in a situation where they're asking for help, assistance, guidance, wisdom, and you're in a place where you can be able to bestow that onto them, then you can help point to them their unconsciousness, what they're not aware of. and that may help uplift them to becoming more present, so that your communication with them is not a barrier, it becomes a bridge, where you can receive and you can give freely, without hindrances, without obstacles, without things in the way, emotional walls. So when you have aware presence, when you live through the heart in the relationship, there would be more understanding, more insight, more flexibility and compassion. The ego agenda in the relationship does not become a strong influence. The unconscious does not overtake the relationship where you now are locked into an unconscious agreement with each other, where suffering ensues. This way, when you stay in the state of being heart-centered, you have the space of beingness. Without the roles we are expecting others to play, and others are expecting you to play. Freedom. Freedom from the bondage of the ego. I hope this answers your question.